Time to clean up woodblock printing materials. So you want to use a sponge and you want to use warm or hot water. Make sure you get the sponge really wet. And anytime you squeeze out a sponge, you want to make sure you do it down in the sink. Good idea to pull sleeves up. It is washable ink, but still it's a good idea to pull your sleeves up. So the woodblock. So you just get the sponge really wet and you go through and you just basically go ahead, use the sponge, and you're getting the ink off the woodblock. Okay, it is going to stain it a little bit, which does not hurt anything, but your drawing should stay on there since we went over it with Sharpie. All right, so there's an example of cleaning up the woodblock. So we'll set that aside. The roller and the plexiglass. If you shared with someone, then one person can clean up the plexiglass, the other person can clean up the roller. Same thing, these can go right underneath the water or the sponge. Again, hold the sponge down low when you rinse it out, otherwise you could just squeeze it out and you're gonna get ink everywhere. I happen to be using the front row sink. Each sink has their own row. So we got the front row sink, middle row sink, back row sink. So please make sure you use the sink for your row. We all go around one sink, and that's just gonna create a lot more accidents, a lot more mess that is gonna have to be cleaned up before we're dismissed. So I've got the roller cleaned up. Plexiglass, again, you can go right underneath the water. Sponge. All right, so keep rinsing that out. Just that. Okay, if you do happen to get some ink on the counter, then we're gonna make sure we get that wiped off. All right, so if there's ink in the sink, you just go ahead and wipe that out so we're not leaving a mess for the next class. All right, and then it's very important to please dry these off. So you tear off some paper towel from the rolls, and you want to go back and dry this off. This will go back in the container in the back of the room where the plexiglass is stored on the wooden bookshelves. So get that dried off and it will go back to get put away. The roller, also remember it's actually called a brayer, but it is just a roller, so we just call it a roller, but it is actually called a brayer. So you go over this, get it all clean, make sure the ink is off the ends. Sometimes the ink will still be on the ends, so make sure you get that off. Please dry it off. It will go back there in a separate container for the rollers. And the woodblock, same thing. You don't want to sit here and scrub it. Eventually you're going to have some smaller areas of wood. You don't want to end up breaking those off because you're sitting here scrubbing it like that. So you want to do what's called blot drying. You want to take your paper towel, and it's just more a process of just going like this to dry it off. Okay, this will not go in the cabinet since it needs to dry. Just like the ink soaked in a lot, the water also soaks in a lot. So please do not put this in the cabinet where you keep your things, or it will not dry out and it's going to get papers all damp, and that's not going to be good. All right, so this will go over in the drying rack along with the prints. That's where the woodblock will go. And like I had said, if there's ink on the counter, okay, or in the sink area, please dry that off. I'm going to check the sink areas to make sure we're not leaving ink for the next class. So pretty much everything can have water run directly on it or on the sponge, and then use the sponge just directly on these materials as well. So drying rack, and then the correct containers in the back of the room. So thank you for watching on woodblock material cleanup.